This is the first picture of the Earth from space that any of us ever saw. It was taken on Christmas Eve 1968 during the Apollo 8 mission. Relatively comfortable boundaries, but we are filling up that thin shell of atmosphere with pollution. For president in 1988, partly to try to gain some visibility for that issue, and in 1992 went to the White House. We passed a version of a call. Went to Kyoto in 1997 to help get a treaty that's so controversial in the U.S. at least. In 2000, my opponent pledged to regulate CO2, and then that was not a pledge that was kept. But the point of this is, all this time you can see what I have seen all these years. It just keeps going up. It is relentless. And now we're beginning to see the impact in the real world. This is Mount Kilimanjaro more than 30 years ago and more recently. And a friend of mine just came back from Kilimanjaro with a picture he took a couple months ago. Another friend, Lonnie Thompson, studies glaciers. Here's Lonnie with a last sliver of one of the once mighty glaciers. Within the decade, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro. This is happening in Glacier National Park. I climbed to the top of this in 1998 with one of my daughters. Within 15 years, this will be the park formerly known as Glacier. But those who go up to see them, here's what they're seeing every day now. In the Himalayas, there's a particular problem because 40% of all the people in the world get their drinking water from rivers and spring systems that are fed more than half by the meltwater coming off the glaciers. And within this next half century, those 40% of the people on Earth are going to face a very serious shortage because of this melting. Italy, the Italian Alps, same site today. An old postcard from Switzerland. Throughout the Alps, we're seeing the same story. It's also true in South America. This is Peru 15 years ago, and the same glacier today. This is Argentina 20 years ago, same glacier today. 75 years ago in Patagonia, on the tip of South America, this vast expanse of ice is now gone. There's a message in this. It is the rate of 5 billion gallons per second. And then that pulls that current back south. At the end of the last ice age, as the last glacier was receding from North America, the ice melted and a giant pool of fresh water formed in North America. And the Great Lakes are the remnants of that huge lake. An ice dam on the eastern border formed, and one day it broke. And all that fresh water came rushing out, ripping open the St. Lawrence there, and it diluted the salty, dense, cold water, made it fresher and lighter, so it stopped sinking, and that pump shut off. And the heat transfer stopped. And Europe went back into an ice age for another 900 to 1,000. It is also affecting the seasons. Here is a study from the Netherlands. The peak arrival date for migratory birds 25 years ago was April 25th. And their chicks hatched on June the 3rd, just at the time when the caterpillars were coming out. Nature's plan. But 20 years of warming later, the caterpillars peaked 2 weeks earlier, and the chicks tried to catch up with it, but they couldn't. And so they're in trouble. And there are millions of ecological niches that are affected by global warming in just this way. This is the number of days with frost in southern Switzerland over the last 100 years. It has gone down rapidly. But now watch this. This is the number of invasive exotic species that have rushed in to fill the new
surprising
niches.
That there was in the beginning some reluctance and a lot of questions.
They thought what? They thought, first of all, this is going to be technically impossible. We couldn't do it because we didn't really know how to do it at that point. Second of all, they thought it would cost an exorbitant amount of of money, and that all these projections about costs were going to turn out to be a factor of 10 too low, and it was going to take money away from other research.
We set up a test project because everybody was skeptical that these new techniques, the new computers, the new algorithms, the new machines would work at this phenomenal scale. So we set out to sequence the Drosophila genome. That's the largest genome to have be completely deciphered. We chose that genome because it would be the one that would be the most validated sequence in history, because there's so many scientists that study the fruit fly.
But the DNA sequence.
I think we're on the brink of bringing drugs to people to cure disease, not merely to treat disease. The fundamental substance of our medicines that we're developing are the same substances the human body uses to create itself, to build itself, to repair itself, and to maintain itself. So the new medicine will not be from the chemical laboratory, but will be taken from the human body itself. It is the ultimate in natural medicines.
And the opportunities it offers in biotech investments.
I think that you have to distinguish as an investor between what the business is. Most of these new businesses have mistakenly believed that their business is like the internet business. It's an information business. It's selling tools. But the market for that information and the tools is not the general consumer. It's not you, and it's not your cousin. It's not a daughter or a son who is a pharmaceutical researcher. But I think the market of the kind of products we're developing
That will be most commercially
which are
successful.
most commercially successful are pharmaceutical products. So you have to, when you look at these companies, distinguish which companies are using these new technologies only as a tool, and which companies, like ours, are using this technology to bring new drugs to market. Now, it is a riskier business to take knowledge and turn it into drugs, but I believe that this new technology has provided such powerful tools that if we use them correctly, we can dramatically improve productivity. If you look at the pharmaceutical industry writ large, there's a productivity crisis, that the companies must invest a certain amount, about 20% of their revenue, in research. And they